let's talk about the Dennis Schroder trade because I'm over all of the other bullshit. Dennis Schroder gets traded. Sam texts me the night it happens, and he's like, I know Dennis Schroder probably isn't big enough to do an emergency stream for. It is the first trade of Slop season, though.
Yes.
So we at least have that part of it that is worth mentioning, is that it's the first trade that we're getting before the new year. We normally don't get a ton of those before the new year. And December 15th passed, obviously, yesterday. So we had a few things happen, mainly the Dennis Schroder thing. And so the full trade in itself was basically Dennis Schroder and a Mickey second that was like top 45 protected, I think, if I remember correctly, that the Nets sent out.
Yeah.
For D'Anthony Melton's expiring contract after he tore his ACL. Reese Beekman, YKB Discord favorite. I also believe Chuck from Chucking Darts likes Reese Beekman, if I remember correctly, who was a two-way player for the Warriors. I believe he played at University of Virginia. And 3 second-round picks for Dennis Schroder, who, by the way, we've talked about Dennis Schroder this year. We talked about him on the last episode, is having a career year at age 31.
Yeah.
By far the best year of his career, at least since that Thunder year that he had a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now he gets to play for a team that, I think Nets fans were going a little bit insane with his play this year.
Yeah.
I know a person who knows a person that I've heard through the grapevine that their front office was also losing their mind a little bit over the fact that they kept winning these games. So they got out ahead of it. They put an end to this bullshit, and they traded Dennis Schroder to the Warriors for 3 seconds. What did you think of the trade for both sides?
So I think it's interesting. So I had to like look up some of Schroeder's contract details, because one of the things when you're making this trade as, because here's the thing that we've talked about how this is a career year for Schroeder. So let's start there. What can you expect for Schroeder going from one context heavy leverage on the Nets, like he's the guy doing this, going to the Warriors where, you were just saying last show on the Patreon episode last week that like this is a Warriors team that's like very, very much like starved for secondary creation, like when Steph is like off the floor. So like it addresses a lot of that. I will say it's relatively reasonable to expect a little bit of regression from Schroeder. He will not be playing like this, I think, especially once he's like, kind of adapting to this new Warriors system. Like, I think it's probably going to be like not rough, but like I wouldn't be shocked if there's some like a little bit of a step down from that. And this isn't something where they gave up 3 second-round picks, which is a lot if this is a guy you only really expect to be on your roster for like 50 games, 60 games, depending on how far they like make it into the playoffs. So some interesting things. Schroeder, because he signed with Toronto a 2-year deal on this Nets thing, he was traded there. So they're going to have
bird rights.
He has early bird rights, which is different from full bird rights. So they can't pay him anything.
You mean they can't pay him anything that they want, essentially?
Yes, exactly.
Early bird rights is like 125% of the cap, or 125% of what they currently make.
They currently make, yeah. So it's probably going to end up being like he could get up to like 17 million or something like that. And I think that'll probably keep. Yeah, you can probably keep Dennis Schroder at that number. Like as we've been over how not a lot of teams are going to have cap space. Kind of, moving forward, besides the Nets, who obviously just had it. So like,
that is a significant part of this, I think, is the fact that the only team that really has like functional cap space this summer that would be able to take Schroeder away from you if he plays well for you is the team that just traded him, that doesn't want him back.
Yeah, they're not going to like want him back. They just traded him. So, so I think it is. I think they are going to be able to hold on to Schroeder. I think that he'll probably bounce somewhere in effectiveness. He's kind of low key he's a little Karis LeVert, but for seasons instead of like game to game. Yeah. So I think that if they, it's interesting from the Warriors because it does signal to me that 3 seconds isn't a lot, but it's not nothing for it.
But think about it like this. The Nuggets just used 3 seconds to dump Reggie Jackson's 1-year deal to the Hornets. Like, if you think about the opportunity costs from a low risk move, like trading a few seconds, there are bad moves like that happen fairly regularly. Now, there are also good moves, like when the Mavs traded a few seconds with Tim Hardaway's contract and got Quentin Grimes that we both like. That's turned out great for the Mavs. It's a bit of a crapshoot is what I'm trying to say. So sometimes you can trade seconds and you can get a legit rotation player. Sometimes you can trade seconds and you're literally just dumping salary to dodge tax or open up moves for the MLE or something along those lines. I think trading what is basically netting 2 seconds to get a player like Dennis Schroder on its face is good value for the Warriors. Like, once again, I think the Warriors front office is good, but I'm starting to get a little bit impatient with them because I think that, look, I'm not saying that they needed to trade for Cam Johnson in this trade, but I would definitely be a lot more excited about this trade if they had also gotten a Dorian Finney-Smith or a Cam Johnson or someone else that could realistically fit in their rotation that could also fill a need. Because look, I like Dennis Schroder. I think that Dennis Schroder, like you said, like every other year feels like he kind of bounces back and forth between being like an effective NBA player. And sometimes you get the random bad Dennis Schroder year. I think for what the Warriors need, which is just an extra ball handler who can run pick and rolls, like Draymond talked about it in his interview and basically said, we're going to have to adjust to Dennis Schroder because Dennis Schroder is the kind of player that we don't really have here right now, which is, I think, someone who will fill a need for them and we talked about the secondary creation. I think that he'll be primary sometimes when Steph is off the court. And then when Steph is on the court, he's going to move Steph off the ball. He's going to move Buddy off the ball, and he's going to move Pods off the ball. And all three of those guys have been streaky and less effective when they have to be running offense, to be frank, this year. And I think the fact that Schroder is definitely going to help with that, I definitely understand. But also, like, it's kind of like when John Hollinger gets excited over a Daryl Morey move because he gets like a seventh man who's making like $3 million a year. Yeah. At a certain point, you have to acquire legit NBA rotation starter level guys. And I think this Warriors team is primed for that kind of trade. And this is just another half measure to me that I think fills a need, is good value on its face, but also, like, Dennis Schroeder's 6'1". Like, they do not have a lack of guys that are 6'4" and under that can, he'll definitely bring something to the table. But also, funny enough, I think that it's probably going to drive Warriors fans a little bit insane, like Jim Park and all them, who talk about Steve Kerr loving to play guards all the time because they're going to have even more guards at their disposal to play now. And I think that they clearly have another need for a legit, like, guy with size that can play on the wing or at the big positions.
Germ brought it up, and that was where I was going to go. What do you make of the report that this could have been Cam Johnson as well if the Warriors were willing to include Kuminga? Do you think that's real?
I think that's bullshit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I just don't like. Maybe the league is higher on Kuminga than me.
Yeah.
But I just don't believe that Kuminga for Cam Johnson is fair value at all.
No.
I think that would have to be like Kuminga plus picks.
Also, why are you, as the Nets, you can just sign Kuminga? You're like the only team that can actually do that. Like, why would you? I don't know. It seems, yeah. It doesn't seem, it doesn't pass the smell test to me. I don't think that was real.
It makes no sense to me.
I saw Warriors fans losing their minds about that. And I was like, I don't think that's real.
I think that was leaked either by, it's one of two things. That's either leaked from the Warrior side to be like, we believe in you, Kuminga, or that is leaked from someone's agent that is like Kuminga's agent trying to get him out of there. Yeah. Cam Johnson's agent trying to get him out of Brooklyn. Yeah. Like, I don't think that leak is coming from a source that has the invested interests of both of these teams at the same time. I'm not saying that there wasn't discussions that were made, but I do think that if it was Kuminga for Cam Johnson straight up and the Warriors didn't do it, they're brain dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it would have also had to be like salaries to make sense, like Gary Payton II or whatever. But
Yeah,
like
who
those
cares?
are minimal things when you're acquiring a legit starter level wing like Cam Johnson, and someone who I've said for 8 months now would be a great fit on the Warriors, and they should be pursuing him at any chance. Because I think if you're not going to make that push to get a star, if you're not going to trade for Jimmy Butler, okay, you're not going to trade for Lauri Markkanen, that's fine. I understand not wanting to, blow all your assets on one move. I do think you still need a bigger upgrade than Dennis Schroder. Like, Schroeder's having a great year right now. Mm-hmm. I'm skeptical that the shooting and all of that holds when he's playing in more of a system where he doesn't get to cook as much.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a fine move on its face, but I think that if they don't make another move by the deadline, they're just blowing an opportunity to push in. They're in the play-in again. Like, they've lost a ton of games recently, a bunch of close games, a bunch of clutch games. I think that will balance out a little bit, but I don't think it's a guarantee they make the playoffs. And I think with this version of Steph and with Draymond still playing at the level he is, I just think the Kuminga thing is so insane to me if they don't make a trade. Like, if the league actually values him the way that people think he does, think that they value Kuminga, and they're not getting like a legit player back for him that they could get at this deadline, I think it's a massive mistake.
Yeah. No, I think it's bad. Well, and I guess that's my kind of thing is like, I guess, the price is technically right to kind of go back to the seconds thing, but just my thing, I would just say on the seconds, like, because I think like 2 years ago you had stuff like, how many seconds did Saddiq Bey get traded for or something like that?
5. Actually, funny enough, 2 of them were traded in this trade, by the way.
There we go.
Because remember, the Warriors ended up with those picks.
Yes, because they took Wiseman, right? Like that was.
Well,
they traded Wiseman to the Pistons.
They got Gary Payton II back. I think they traded some seconds for him, and they got like most of those picks ended up with the Warriors, and 2 of them were included here from Atlanta.
Okay, and that's what I'm like. You end up. I think people have that in their mind when they're thinking about seconds. So you're going back to like these trades where like seconds were just fucking thrown around for guys who were like barely NBA rotation players. That calculus is not going to hold up like much longer, and I think that that's something that is very smart on Sean Mark's part, like right now. Because I think that those are going to be valuable. There's some changes in the CBA rules. We've got a huge percentage of the league is second apron hard capped. And there is an exception for one of the few ways you can add rotation players is by having second round picks. And that's something that is going to have value down the line. I think the Nets probably have like, the Nets aren't necessarily going to want to be using a ton of they're going to have a ton of draft picks. They're going to want to develop their actual first round draft picks. They're probably not going to want to use these seconds. They're going to be able to use some of these seconds, I think. And I think you're going to be surprised in like 2 or 3 years what like a package of like 4 seconds gets you. Like it will end up being equivalent to like a solid first round pick.
And this is what I've been saying, and it drives me insane because one of the things that came out of the Mikal Bridges trade over the summer was that there was this idea that picks were overrated. And I said, you're operating on what picks were 2 or 3 years ago when everyone had their picks.
Yes.
Most of the league does not have their picks.
Yes.
Which makes that currency even more valuable in these kind of trades. And that goes, I think that extends beyond just first round picks to second round picks as well. Yeah. Where once again, you talk about like in the CBA, you have the new exception where you can sign guys to contracts to a second round exception, similar to a rookie round first round exception that doesn't go against your cap and it can be used as a tool to get, if you hit on one of these picks, like it looks like the Thunder just did with AJ Mitchell. It looks like the Grizzlies just did with Jalen Wells.
Wasn't Ryan Dunn a second round pick?
He was a first round pick.
He was a first round pick.
Okay. Yeah. But still, these guys that were taken in the second round, like, I mean, the Warriors didn't get the benefit of they ended up having to dip into their MLE, I think, to sign Trace Jackson Davis. But like those kind of players, like that can be very valuable, especially to a rebuilding team that's going to cycle through these guys, like to make sure that they can find the right pieces for their team. A team that actually, I think Jalen Wilson is a guy they found in the second round before. He might have been undrafted. But my point on this is that basically I think that picks are more valuable now than they've ever been.
Yes.
Because like you can add up the second round picks to make it equivalent to a first round pick when no one has first round picks. And those first round picks that, like, if a team has like the OKC picks or the Rockets picks or one, they might even be even more valuable when no one else can bid against them in these trades, because teams have basically just completely thrown all of their picks out the window. So I think that there's a chance that those picks can actually go up in trade value and have real value to get you back legitimate good NBA players. And I kind of look at this as, like, from the Nets perspective. I look at this is a perfect example of, like, what I think is a front office that knows what it's doing versus a front office that I think has no idea what it's doing, which is the Bulls versus the Nets.
Yes.
And the Bulls are now saying they're not trading Vucevic. Now, some of this might be smoke. This might be bullshit. But they're saying we're not trading Vucevic unless we get a first-round pick back, which is, by the way, the same thing that they did with Zach LaVine, who they now can't trade.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at it as, here's an opportunity to get a player off of our team, like in the Nets case, it was Dennis Schroder. In the Bulls case, it's Vucevic, who's helping us win too many games this year. There's an opportunity cost that comes with them trading Dennis Schroder 2 months before the deadline to maybe maybe if we waited, we could have got a top 25 protected first round pick or some fake first round pick that was bullshit Mickey, best of 4 different teams, like one of the picks that the Sixers have or one of the picks that OKC has or something like that. Or we could get second round picks right now, and we can make our own pick worse for this upcoming draft. And there's value in that, because now we can be clearly one of the 4 or 5 worst teams in the NBA, have a shot at getting the first pick. If we don't get the first pick, it's a loaded draft. Who cares? We'll have a top 5 pick. And I think that what the Bulls are doing by saying we're not trading Vucevic for anything more than a legit first round pick would be a massive mistake, because getting Vucevic off your team still helps you, because you owe the Spurs a top 10 protected first round pick, and you want to keep that pick in this good draft. So that's my whole thing, is like, while the Nets probably might have even gotten like a top 20 protected first round pick, taking your chances with these second round picks and still making your own pick worse is better in the long term for the Nets than waiting and extracting every single inch of value you can out of a player in a trade.
Yeah, no, timelines matter for these sorts of things. It matters what the impact is going to be. And also, I think that they're also like figuring out, because if you're trading Schroder for a first round pick, you're trading him for one that's probably not very good. Like you're probably you're getting a fake one or something that ends up being 2 seconds anyway.
Yep.
So like, I don't know. I think getting a couple of Atlanta looks good right now, but like not great. You know what I'm saying? They're still, I think if you stack up the league, I think in record wise, they're still in the bottom half technically. So
you're still getting picks in the 40s probably.
Yeah. Like, and getting a couple of those. And I think especially with this, with being forward looking to this new cap environment, to say like nothing of like the fact that they're going to have cap space. I think in the next like year or two, we're going to see something like, I'm just using this as an example, not the specific player, but we're going to see something like Drew Holiday getting traded to the Nets for practically nothing, and like maybe like a couple of like, or maybe like a second or two. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's. I just like that you're like just a random NBA player. No personal feelings on this at all. Let's just throw a dart at a board. Drew Holiday. Why not Drew Holiday? Because Drew Holiday is an effective player who's very well paid for a good team. And I think that we're going to see a lot of those. I'm having a hard time thinking of another.
Here's a good one. We've already seen it. Yeah. I know this is because he had a bad year, that this is why he got traded. But John Collins is 50, 40, 90 this year. And 2 years ago, he got traded for basically a second round pick.
Yes.
So what you're trying to say is that in this new CBA environment, a player like John Collins, who's also a bit of a roulette wheel player based on the year, who can have a good year 1 year and have a down year the next year, can literally get salary dumped for a second round pick. And under this new CBA, I think it is more likely that, and Drew is better than John Collins, to be clear here.
Yeah.
But there are going to be like legit starter level players that can help teams win that under this new environment, when there are less first round picks to be traded, when teams are trying to avoid certain penalties from the aprons, they might be able to get like legit players dumped to them. I mean, honestly, I know Zach makes too much money, but Levine's probably another good example of this, where if the Bulls were to just trade Levine for nothing right now, they would probably have to take back just like second round picks or whatever. But ultimately, those are the kind of moves that we might see in this new environment, especially when teams blow it up.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good example. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of a player like of the caliber of like PJ Washington, for example, that like makes like $20 million or something like that. Like guys like that will be. I'm having a trouble like finding like an exact like 1-to-1. How about this? Desmond Bane in like 2 years is going to be very interesting. Because
certainly he's making max money, not playing like a max player right now.
That's what guys like that, because everyone would be like, well, why on earth? There's a 0% chance the Grizzlies would ever trade Desmond Bane for like nothing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and here's what I'm saying. I don't know about that. That's going to be something that's going to be very interesting over like the next 2 years. I'm not saying Desmond Bane is a bad player. But
no, I think Bane's a good example, because here's why.
Yeah.
The Grizzlies nail the fucking draft every year, and eventually you have to pay guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good example where, like, all right, well, what if, Jalen Wells becomes an OG and an OB level player? Yes. And what if, like, then you have so much stuff, or so many guys to pay, that you eventually do run into these issues. And while before you could probably trade that player and get back legit value, under the new CBA, it will be harder for players who are making, I would say around the max, maybe slightly sub-max, that aren't legit like all-star, all-NBA talent. And I think that is something that we'll definitely see moving forward for sure. Like, I think it's an inevitability, to be completely honest with you. And I think there will be teams that are rebuilding right now that will probably take advantage of that. And I think the Nets will be one of them eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason I just think Sean Marks, like, with the benefit of a true rebuild, like with most of his own picks, like, I think it's about to be a movie, because like they're nailing this. Like, they're the only team with cap space. They're going to be able to name their price. They're going to there's going to be maybe not quite the caliber of like Desmond Bane, but there's going to be guys. They're going to get like 2 first-round picks for taking DeAndre Hunter into cap space or something like that. And he's been like pretty good this year. Well, that's what I'm saying. He's been pretty good this year, like guys like that. That's I guess just that's what I'm saying, is guys that are like, we're used to thinking of, oh, like if you were to trade this guy who makes $25 million, $30 million, he would be worth a first-round pick. And these are guys who are like very normal starters. Like, they're not bad. I'm not talking about like Jordan Poole or something like that. I'm talking about like guys like Tyler Hero. Speaking of which, I'm watching Bam Adebayo very carefully. Like, Bam Adebayo could be.
You say keep your hands off Tyler Hero, the Heat's best player.
Yes. So it's gonna be very interesting. I'm just gonna say that. So
I just want to ask you a few questions here before we move on.
Okay.
One, did you catch that Shams reported that Dennis Schroder could be traded again before the deadline because they traded for him so early?
No, that's fair.
Which is a hilarious thing to report, because, by the way, they reported on this at the NBA Cup, which, shout out to Sean Hyken, who Sean always talks about the prestige zone.
Yes.
Which is that if you're like a Lakers or Warriors player, a perfect example of this is like if the Warriors were the ones that acquired Reese Beekman instead of the Nets, it would be like, oh, he's a scrappy defender, two-way player that has some real legit upside. Look at his analytics and his production from college. But since the Nets were the team that got him, he would not fall into the prestige zone, right? It has to be one of the Warriors, the Lakers, these teams that, if we want to talk about ratings, are like the ratings monsters for the NBA and are the teams that tend to get preferential treatment in the media. But since he's just a throw-in, he's just another guy for the Nets.
Yeah.
The small market Nets, right?
Right.
No, but
Small bean drafted team.
In Brooklyn.
The new small bean drafted team in Brooklyn.
The small bean gentrification team.
Let's go.
But the thing that I want to say here is that they reported on the Dennis Schroder trade. Slop, of course, is how the NBA gets its ratings as well. Like, Slop is, like, as we know, one of the biggest things that people talk about and gets views and clicks and ratings and whatever. But they were talking about the Dennis Schroder trade literally right before the Thunder and the Rockets played the other night, as if it was consequential to that game at all. And during the game, and once again, it was a player being traded to the Warriors, and also Dennis Schroder played for the Lakers twice. So he's, like, firmly in the middle of the prestige zone. Like, he also, another factor of this, he turned down a big bag from the Lakers that would have fucked up the Lakers if they had taken that contract. So there's another wrinkle in the Dennis Schroder story. But my whole point on this is I've never seen a reporter go out there and go, oh, this guy that they just traded for, by the way, they can trade him again before the deadline in less than 2 months if this shit really doesn't work. Like, that is insane, dude. They can re-aggregate his salary, I guess, in like probably 6 weeks or something. They could trade him straight up right now.
Can they aggregate? Are they a first apron team?
Okay, the only reason I know this is perverted.
Yeah. It's Jim Park. Your Jim Park.
No. A few years ago, when the Sixers, I remember the Sixers had a small trade exception from the Al Horford Danny Green trade.
Yeah.
And we were begging them to trade for one of the Hernan Gomez brothers, like Juan Hernan Gomez, or he made like $9 million a year. Yeah. But we didn't have any tradable salary. And I remember someone saying they told Daryl Morey this. And Daryl Morey was like, how do you even fucking know Juan Hernan Gomez's salary? And the reason I say this is that it was literally like 2 months before the deadline. And I was like, trade for him now and you can re-aggregate him in 2 months. And I think you can do that technically.
Okay. I mean, if they're a first apron team, yeah. I mean, I guess
they're not second apron.
It is interesting because if Melton is done, it could just be getting like a functional body to like give to it if there's a team that like has a good.
If they wanted to trade for Jimmy Butler still.
Yeah.
Or is this leak coming from Miami and being like, listen, the Warriors are still in on Jimmy, say that they could re-aggregate Dennis Schroder?
That's probably more likely.
It's definitely not coming from Bernie Lee.
Yeah, I was just going to say Bernie Lee was talking about, you keep my name out of it. Your close personal friend, Bernie Lee, by the way.
Bernie Lee, a fan of my tweets. I didn't know I didn't know he was familiar with my game at all. But
yeah, your boy.
By the way, JS, shout out to who goes by Jeremy Sohan in the Discord, pointed out that Bernie Lee and Jimmy Butler are a perfect match for each other.
Yeah, seriously.
Because it's very obvious there was at least some sort of leak coming from him.
Yeah.
And then he had to be like, oh no, it wasn't me. He was like, he's the Jimmy Butler of agents.
Yes.
Like he tweets all the time. He loves the attention. No agent in the NBA would bring Ben Simmons on as their client other than Bernie Lee.
Yeah. Is he really? Is Ben?
Yeah, he added him to a year and a half ago when he left Clutch. He's Bernie Lee's guy now.
It's so funny, dude. Oh my God. Ben Simmons, get ready to learn veterans minimum, buddy.
Well, Bernie Lee looked at the Ben Simmons situation and said, I can fix him. We'll
see. We're definitely going to see. I don't know.
Lights will guide you home. I will fix you.
I will fix you. Oh my God. KJ just said that Chris Dunn is the other Bernie Lee client.
That's why he quoted did you see my tweet?
Yeah.
So for anyone who missed it, I tweeted during a game in March. By the way, this game counted because Tyrese Maxey had 50 points against the Jazz. And all I tweeted was, and I wasn't making fun of Zach Lowe or Chris Dunn. I was talking about how great Tyrese Maxey was playing. I said, Zach Lowe just called Chris Dunn the best guard defender on earth, and Tyrese Maxey is killing him right now. And once again, I was trying to hype up Maxey. It wasn't Dunn slander or Zach Lowe slander. And Bernie Lee quote tweeted that and said, "You must have tweeted this during the first half," because I guess he was locking him up down the stretch or something. Yeah. And I was like, brother, he had 50 points in that game. And I didn't know that Chris Dunn was also Bernie Lee's client. So he's good at his job. He's getting ahead of the propaganda. To say, hey, listen, random guy on Twitter with, I probably had 15,000 followers at the time. You're not going to get away with this one.
That's awesome.
No, shout out to Bernie Lee, man. We should have him on the pod sometime. Okay, so in other slop news. Oh, actually, before we move on, do you think the Warriors make any other moves before the deadline, or do you think this is it?
I would leave the door open. I don't think it's likely, but I do think it's possible. I think a Kuminga move is still pretty possible because I don't think they really want to re-sign him, to be totally honest. Like, I'm
leaning towards they do make a move because they're one of the few teams that has picks and expiring salaries. Yeah. So they have the Kuminga expiring. I think Gary Payton II is also expiring. Looney is expiring. They have money to make a move. They have picks to make a move. I hope they revisit the Cam Johnson conversation. And I hope that they realize that if the Nets are actually interested in Kuminga, and that was a legit report, that they should really consider. Like, once again, I think Kuminga might have a shot somewhere else. I don't see there's no chance he fits with the Warriors. Nah. There is just a certain kind of player that doesn't work with the Warriors, and Kuminga is one of them. I think the trading for Schroder is kind of evidence of that, to be completely honest with you. Yeah. Because if they were worried, if they believed in Kuminga, like people say that they obviously don't believe in Kuminga because they didn't pay him. And two, like if they don't trade for another scorer ball handler if they really believe in Kuminga's upside, or at least his ability to help the team right now. And I think that they should explore that. I think that they should still try to get like a legit size upgrade on the wing, someone like Cam Johnson, someone, maybe there's someone else out there that I'm not thinking of right now that could come in and help them in, have a boost in addition to Dennis Schroder. Cause I think there are going to be certain matchups where they're just incredibly small because once again, I think Pods and Buddy will probably have a diminished role with Schroder coming in now, but those two, like you have 4 or 5 guys, like Moody's in and out of the rotation constantly, and he's like 6'5". Like half of their team is still guards. They need to get wings and bigs. And I think they could survive the big thing if they just put Draymond at the 5, but they need to get like legit size. Like I don't think they can get up to the John Collins number, but if there's like a style player like in that mold too, I would consider exploring it.
Is Draymond Defensive Player of the Year?
He's close to, I mean, he's definitely, it's probably Wemby, but I would imagine that Draymond's probably top 3 or 4.
I caught some of that game last night and like some replay, like holy fuck. With sans Draymond, it's tough.
Even with Draymond, the Mavs were. Did you see that the Warriors almost broke the NBA record for threes made in a game and they lost?
Yeah.
It was the most threes combined ever in a game. I mean, it was just insane what they were doing as just Luka, Kyrie, Clay. The shot making was just another level from the Mavs, let's say. And one of the reasons why I've always been like higher on the Mavs as a playoff team is that like there are certain teams that they're going to go up into with matchups where they're just going to be able to make shots. They did it to the Wolves last year. We'll see with the Thunder this year because the Thunder's defense is very obviously even better than last year, but they just do enough with the Mavs. It really wasn't until that Celtics series. And if I remember correctly, I think that their defense was kind of a disaster in the finals, but either way, we'll see.
That I just think it's, by the way, pretty interesting that we've had that matchup twice now. And both times they've been like awesome games.
They've been we're going on like 3 straight years of really good Mavs Warriors games. Yeah. I really want to see that in the first round, like as like the 2-7. Well, I think that would be a great matchup.
Stuff gives it a little more
juice.
Yeah, a little juice. Yeah. which is fun.
And it's funny to say this coming out of last night because if you believe that the Warriors' problems are on defense, I still think their problems are going to be a little bit more on offense because I think Draymond will play 35-40 minutes game in the playoffs. And I think that they're starting Kuminga right now, by the way, and like that.
Yeah.
Nate's pointing this out in the comments. Like Jim Park is kind of right about the 3-4 thing with them. Like they have Wiggins and Kuminga are both clearly threes.
Yeah.
Kuminga's not good enough defensively to be a 4. He's not a good enough shooter to be a 3. Where does he really fit with this team? And I don't really think that he does fit with this team. And I think that he is the solution to having an upgrade.
Yeah.
On this roster, if there is actual teams that value him across the league, we'll see if they actually can make it happen. If they did go the big route, I still kind of like Vucevic for them personally.
That's what I was just going to ask if you thought
I kind of like him.
Kuminga for Vucevic is a fair trade because I don't think I don't think the Warriors would do that. Yeah, I was going to say because I don't think I'm skeptical the Nets are actually going to want Kuminga because I think they're pretty smart. Hey, Kuminga kind of feels like a Bulls acquisition, I gotta say.
Top 10 pick for the 2021 draft. Kuminga and Giddey, we should have drafted Franz twins.
Oh my god. Oh,
it's perfect. Send him there. Just
we can't kill Kevin like this.
I was gonna say the difference between trading for Kuminga and trading for Giddey. One, I believe in Kuminga more than I believe.
Oh, for sure. Yes, definitely.
Like Kuminga still has random games where he'll have a 30-point explosion, and you're like, it can be tantalizing a little bit with Kuminga. Like the moments and flashes. The Giddey stuff is like if you're a guard who can't shoot and you're not nearly as athletic as you need to be a lead guard in the NBA, I think you're just going to suck. And I think that with Kuminga, you could at least squint and see some opportunities with him, especially because Kuminga is a guy that was when he was coming into the league, you knew he was going to be raw and you were going to have to develop him.
Yeah.
The functional issue of a trade like that is that you have to pay Kuminga immediately.
Yeah.
And like Giddey, you got a whole year, and if you're smart, which I don't think the Bulls are, you wouldn't pay him. You would just be like, if you're bringing him back, offer him $10 million a year, and be like, all right. But if you're actually going to pay someone, like I would not pay Kuminga or Giddey. But if you're going to pay one of those guys, you want to get them in house and see how they look first. And like worst case scenario for the Bulls is he goes there and he has a Mickey Mouse March.
Ooh. Yeah.
And then they pay him off the back of that. Like that's like a franchise ruining move.
Dude, I'm thinking about Kuminga and Patrick Williams as forwards. Like just one of the most go on girl, give us nothing front courts in the NBA.
Yeah, seriously. Just the Tony Snell of raw athletic wings, quote unquote. The Bulls are familiar with Tony Snell's game. I mean, and also I do just want to point out that would make the Franz thing a little bit more painful too, because as Jake points out in the comments, Franz was also a Bulls pick.
Oh, that's tough.
So you're taking the two guys who went in front of him that should have been Franz, and you traded Franz for the Vuce, but it's just never-ending cycle of shit.
I'm like now positive that's going to happen because that's like designed in the psychic torture chamber of hell to make Kevin more insane.
Yeah.
I was going to say make Kevin insane, but make Kevin more insane.
Well, I was just thinking like
Kevin is regularly sending 20 player trade machine war crimes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 20 player stat head queries about how how Matas Buzelis is like the next Andre Karolinko or whatever.
It is done. We need to get the Bulls fans like a real front office soon. Like this is getting like as bad as things were for like Nets fans for like a long time. Like this is somehow more dire. Like even though they're like technically not as screwed. Like what's going on with the Bulls? Like Karnisovas, like coming off the Garpax era.
Well, Kev sent us this chart that was playoff series wins and top 5 picks, like a chart.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, and the Bulls were last if you combine both of them. because they don't win they were like the definition of a purgatory team.
Yeah.
Like they don't win playoff series, but they also don't ever get top picks. So they're like, I think it was going back the last 10 years, and they've never had a top 5 pick. Oh no, they had a top 5 pick once, and they used it on Patrick Williams.
That's right.
And then they also, I think they've won in that stretch. They made the playoffs twice, and they won one play. Did they ever win a playoff series? Did the Jimmy Butler teams win a playoff series?
Maybe. I didn't think so. But
did they lose because they lost to the Celtics?
I don't think they made the playoffs like very often. Like
no, they didn't.
They won 2. They won 2 with the Derrick Rose team, and I feel like, and didn't the Noah team won one once, I think.
Someone just look up last Bulls playoff win series.
Because
they won a game against the Bucks a few years ago, but they've missed the playoffs a lot.
Lost in the first round. The last time they won was 2014-15, when it was a Jimmy Butler team. Yeah.
So this would have been the one playoff series win that they had during this stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they beat the Bucks with like second year Giannis.
Okay. Yeah.
That's how far back you have to go to get a playoff series win. Once again, because sometimes we talk about it on the podcast and we're like,
it was Thibodeau's last year, by the way.
Right. And then, Oh, God, that set off the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Once again, when we talk about things on the podcast, sometimes it is like contender brain shit where we're like, this player probably can't be. But sometimes it is legitimately like, not just purgatory, quote unquote. It's literally like winning a playoff series can do a lot for a team. Can do a lot for a franchise. Like the Kings, who almost won one a few years ago, that would have been the greatest thing that's happened to them in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
The fact that they are just stuck in this zone right now is so tough for the Bulls. I can't even. Kev has psyoped us into talking about this on the fucking air.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say because the other thing is like I don't even really believe in like the treadmill of mediocrity shit. Like because you've got to be stupid too. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the thing.
That's the Bulls combination that they.
Yeah, you like they did draft Larry Markkinen. Like, you know what I'm saying? They've had a combination of like bad luck and shit too. Like
bad luck, stupidity.
Yeah.
Stupidity, bad luck, and also just impatience is another part of it. Because they got impatient with Tibbs, they got impatient with Jimmy, they got impatient with Lowry Markkinen. They honestly, the only player that they didn't get impatient with was Zach LaVine, and then they ended up going in the opposite direction and probably paying him too much to quote unquote not lose the asset. Then this new CBA comes in, and now all the reports are saying they can't trade Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
So
it was just such a they traded Wendell Carter, who I know Kev says like sucks, but like is at least a NBA starter. Like I'm sorry, is an NBA starter for a good playoff team right now. And you trade him for like a shitty old guy. You end up trading the Franz pick. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it just there's the treadmill of mediocrity thing here, like with it's not something where not all being in the middle does not like being the 8th seed or being the 9-10 seed in an East does not automatically damn you to being a bad team forever. It's when it's compounded with stupid front office management and bad luck and all of this other stuff. Honestly, the Bulls probably would have won a playoff series if Lonzo didn't get hurt that first year.
Maybe.
I think they would have. I think that
I don't even know that. I don't think you can guarantee that because, like, look, I love DeMar DeRozan. He's also one of the all-time great playoff droppers. And like, if you have DeMar as your best player, which those teams did, there's probably a ceiling to your team that if you play any decent team in the playoffs, you're probably going to lose. So it's hard for me to believe that team would have won. But either way, at least they would have been competitive and made the playoffs, which is something you can build on at a minimum.
Yeah.
You know,
I think they would have. I think they could have gotten some of like they could have been at least competitive in a couple of like playoff series versus like what we got, which was just this like very sad, drawn out, bleeding death, where it's like
and also never admitting your mistakes because they made many mistakes. And not realizing, oh man, Lonzo's knee being cooked means that this changes everything for us. Yeah. Like
We just have
we gotta
all
pivot
this
out of this.
Yeah, exactly. And getting out ahead of things. And once again, I hope they hold on to their pick this year, because that would send them even further down. I'm not talking about this anymore. Kev can't psyop us into talking about the Bulls all the time. All right.
So the charity moment for this thing is the Kevin mental health moment. We love Kev, and we're trying to save him.
So Paul Reed was waived over the weekend.
I saw his last game ever.
It was not good.
It was really bad. He was so bad. I love him, but goddamn, he was terrible. That game.
I love B-Ball Paul and Trajan Langdon. You have made the list for cutting him and not making sure our guy is taken care of. He was still on. By the way, he was still on that contract.
The Danny Ainge Brat Bastard special. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wait, what? The Pistons already re-signed him.
Oh,
they brought him back on a minimum deal.
Let's go.
Let's go. So he cleared waivers.
Let's go.
So they brought him back. Okay, got it. Okay, so they
That's
just
very funny.
Honestly, that is a savvy move. I have to answer to Trajan Langdon. It's a bit of a bastard move. It's really a bit of a Daryl Morey, Danny Ainge move, but it is savvy because they waived him. So they basically, his contract would have been guaranteed, fully guaranteed, if he was still on the team in like January 15th or something, one of these random dates. But now they waived him to get off $2.5 million in dead money. There you go. Keith Smith has it. They signed Javonte McCoy to get back to the salary floor on Sunday. But McCoy gets 4 days of salary of what should be $32,000. Nice. Good for McCoy.
Yeah.
Reed now re-signs at a prorated vet minimum, which will be $1.4 million for the rest of the year. So basically, he's making $3.9 million this year instead of 7.7. But this opens up more cap space for the Pistons, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
So the Pistons are going to. It's very funny because a lot of people's reaction to this was, "Oh, the Pistons are going to be buyers now. The Pistons are going to be." It's the exact opposite.
The Pistons are dead shit. Yeah. Yeah.
The Pistons are going to be the team that is. And by the way, Troy Weaver did this a lot and never really got much back. We'll see what Trajan Langdon can cook, because we talked about it on the Patreon episode last week. I think that this gets them to what? Like, they were at 10 million in cap space, you said?
Yeah, if they're at the floor, I think they're probably around like 15 to 20 something.
So I think they'll be like, they were supposed to be at 15, but since they brought back Paul Reed, they'll probably be at like 13 to 14 million in cap space now.
Yeah, I would guess something like that. I'll have a set number here in a second. Keep talking.
But either way, I think we're about to see them do like a historical amount of dumps, folks. They're going to be dumping all over the place. We're going to be seeing teams, as Sam has pointed out before, there are certain teams that literally cannot make trades at this deadline because of the new apron rules without sending stuff to a third team, because teams that want to trade players one for one can't take back more salary in trades. So the Pistons, as SH points out in the comments, are going to be diarrhea islands.
Yeah.
There's going to be mad dumps, tons of runs going on in Detroit.
I believe the number is going to be about 14 million. 14 to 13.
Okay, so $14 million in space.
Yeah.
So this is going to result in one of two things, as we talked about on the Patreon podcast. This is either going to result in them getting a bunch of like minimum contracts with second round picks attached to them. And like, okay, like the Sixers want to make a trade, let's say, and they take back Eric Gordon's contract and they get 2 seconds to take on Eric Gordon's contract. Or this is going to take the route of, if there's, let's say, the Warriors, who we just talked about, want to make a trade, the Pistons might just get Kayvon Looney for free.
Yes, exactly.
Or Gary Payton II for free.
Yep.
Because teams won't want to take the money back. They literally cannot take certain money back. So we could be looking at the Pistons either getting free rotation players, or the Pistons. I'd be most interested to see if there's a team that's like really desperate to get off money, if they can do what the Spurs just did this past offseason and get a swap.
like with the Harrison Barnes trade, where they took on like a far out swap from the Kings in the middle of Wemby's prime to take on that Harrison Barnes. Like if there's like a $12 million player, like for example, I don't think that the Bulls would do it with Lonzo Ball, but if there's like a Lonzo Ball size contract that a team is trying to get off, sending that to the Pistons and sending them a swap that's like 6 years out.
I think it's going to be easier to get that from a team too, because I think teams are going to be more willing to bet against the Detroit Pistons historically than they are going to be, like, for example, when prime Wemby. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, obviously that was a kind of a bozo move by the Kings, but like, I think that I think they're going to be able to get real upside, because I think there are going to be some GMs who look at the Pistons and are like, you know what? Yeah, we'll do that, because I don't think you're ever going to be good. I think you're a sad sack franchise, and I don't think you're ever going to be. I don't think that's ever going to hurt us, really. I think you're always going to be worse than us. So I think a swap is actually probably the most likely thing in like some sort of salary thing, because they're like readily available and it can just like not hurt you sometimes.
And they also don't affect trading other picks too.
Exactly.
Because you could trade swaps pretty freely. I mean, like teams do it fairly often, and that might be another layer of currency in the trade market as we move forward. Is like teams, like the market inefficiency is actually doubling down on swaps instead of trying to get second round picks, because look, it might be a 1 in 5 shot of hitting, but if it does hit that one time and you get like we got the 6th pick in the draft because the Suns sent us a swap to get second round picks. Like, remember that trade that happened before when we were like, what the fuck is this trade?
Yeah, there's so many like weird ones. Like obviously the Jason Tatum is like the big swap that everyone remembers, but like I don't know, like that fucking Sixers Thunder swap is pretty fucking scary.
Well, it wasn't a swap.
Now.
That's just a straight up pick.
Oh, that's just a pick. Never mind.
That's a pick, which once again is a great way to transition into talking about the Sixers, because I'm afraid that the Sixers are now in this dead zone that I really feared for them, which is okay. So Jared McCain's out for
unreal, curse, by the way. Unreal how cursed this fucking season is gonna. I literally can't believe it. Like,
can you believe that we picked fucking New Orleans for our trip and it's literally, I mean,
this is demonic. We can never do a live show ever again. No fans are gonna show up and murder us. Like if
we've
been
plotting in the Discord. We might go on a little.
Boston.
We might go on a little tour. Little Boston, little New York, little Miami, little Milwaukee.
I'm a sailor.
Bring me a list. Bring me a
a
rival of the Sixers. If we're going down, you're coming down with us. It is kind of insane that
doing a YKP Chiefs game. Let's end the franchise. Suicide.
Why are you guys going to Dallas for a Cowboys game again? We're just pouring salt in the wound at this point as Eagles fans to do that to the NFL version of the Sixers and the Cowboys. By the way, I talked about the Eagles Celtics parallels before.
Yeah.
And how 2022 both teams get to the finals.
Yeah.
They lose to the dynastic Warriors and Chiefs.
Yeah.
Last year, so we're like a year behind you guys, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And then we have like a weird year that's the vibes are off and we have new coaches and it doesn't really work out. And then we add more talent and we're better than ever this year.
Yeah.
Similar to what the Celtics did last year.
Yeah.
The Sixers and Cowboys parallels are kind of fucking insane too, because the Cowboys are having like a horrible year with injuries. Yeah. Dak goes down. The team sucks. They're middling. They're not quite, they can't fully tank because they're still competent enough.
Yeah, it's harder with football too, because you win early and you can't pivot out of it once you get hurt.
And also football. One of the things that's different about basketball than football is that some of these guys are fighting for their careers because their careers are so short in the NFL. Yeah. That like the average career is like 3 or 4 years. And because of that, they're like, I'm not fucking taking a game off. Like, I'm trying every single time I'm out in there. I'm trying to make as much money as I can while I'm still young and healthy. Like the NBA, I know some of these guys are like fringe players and like will bust their ass, but ultimately the talent will win out in the NBA as it normally does. the NBA, like when we're getting into the end of the season and like the Nets are playing, like we'll see what Jordy Fernandez can do, but the Nets are playing, these like fringe NBA guys. They will be able to tank if they really want to tank. Yeah. The Sixers are in a position right now where the Sixers are in a position right now where Jared McCain is now out. And here's the good news if you're pro tank. Kyle Lowry will now be Nick Nurse is the coach. Kyle Lowry is playing 28 minutes a game now that he is out. And Kyle Lowry, for my money, has been the worst veteran player in the NBA for a month and a half. Basically scores once every 2 weeks at this point, is nothing on defense anymore, is basically just a guy who is on the court to make inbound passes. So you have that factor. The other factor is the fact that the Sixers really only had 4 legit players in Paul George, Maxey, McCain, Embiid. Embiid obviously suffers another random freak accident, this sinus fracture. I've never even heard of a sinus fracture before.
That sounds like something that would be like in fuck, what do you
Dungeons and Dragons?
No, what why am I forgetting the word?
Oregon Trail?
Oh, there we go. No, it sounds like something that would be in the Epstein autopsy. Like that's like leaked on like CNN. Like, oh, he had a sinus fracture. That happens sometimes when you when you commit suicide. And everyone's like, wait, a sinus fracture? You can't get a sinus fracture from that. Like, it really is such a bizarre injury to like ever happen to like. When is it?
Yeah, Joel Embiid has
back here, like right, like what? It's not like it's your orbital bone or something like that.
Well, that's the thing. He's broken his orbital bone 2 times, I think. And yeah, I was gonna say so Joel Embiid has his what is it? The hyoid bone was broken for Joel Embiid. Like it is getting to a point where the injuries are just completely insane and random. And like with the knee stuff, it's like, man, this sucks. Like he can't. The Sixers had 1 game where they looked like a normal team where everyone was healthy. That was the Bulls game. They win the Bulls game. The vibes are restored. And then there's a week break randomly in the middle of the season. There's a week break because of the NBA Cup, I assume. And they come back, and in 1 game, Joel Embiid has this freak accident injury, and Jared McCain could potentially be out for the season. Now, let me explain this for the millionth time. The meniscus injury, it's not a choice, guys. This is going to drive me fucking insane because it always does whenever someone has a meniscus injury. They will go in, they will try to do the full repair injury, which would put him out for 10 to 12 months, and that would end his season. If they can't do that, they're going to have to basically just shave off some of his meniscus, and that will get him back quicker. That would get him back in like 2 months, but has potentially some long-term ramifications that people try to avoid when doing these surgeries. They won't know until they actually he goes under the knife, and they try to figure that out. But once again, the Sixers' curse season continues, and if this isn't a sign from fucking God that this team should just try to tank and keep their pick, I don't know what it will take, because once again, I've been saying this whole time that the tank will take care of itself. Like, they don't have to try. The team sucks. They don't have enough good players. They had a Mickey part of the schedule where they were able to rack up some wins, and they look way more competitive in general. But if you're not getting Joel Embiid healthy for a week or 2 straight, and then Jared McCain, who's one of your 4 good players, is potentially out 2 months, maybe the whole season. Like, I think that they might be stuck in this range where they're not even good enough to like make it into the playoffs. They might be like, their ceiling might be like the 9 seed. And their floor is the 4th best team, and your odds of keeping your pick, if you don't have one of the 3 worst records because you owe that top 6 protected pick, it's not great once you get into that 4 to 8 range, because it's like basically a 50% chance that you're handing the pick over to OKC. And I think that once again, I don't know what they can do. Like, people are like, are they going to be sellers? I'm like, who are they selling? What do they have? They don't have good players.
There's Yabu, basically.
Yabu is the only one that I think a team might be like, here's 2 second-round picks for Yabu. And even then, they can't.
I also think maybe KJ Martin, maybe.
Well, that's the thing is that the KJ thing is interesting to me because KJ, if they're truly deciding to go into this stretch and say we're still going to try to win games, like, look, Jared McCain wasn't in our plans anyway. Him being good was kind of a surprise, and they want to go the optimistic route and say whatever they say. KJ Martin has kind of become too important to the team. Like, this is if it gets to the point where we get to the deadline and Yabu and KJ Martin are available, it means that the next 2 months they have won like 4 games from here on out. Like, they're like at like 11 wins. Or like maybe 15 wins.
And I that's like the other like scary thing for me, like about the, like, I don't know, like, can you consistently lose enough to get past the other losers that are around you? Because every team around you is really fucking bad. Like,
everyone is
technically a better team, and so are the Blazers right now. Like, that's fucked up.
Well, the Pistons, I think, could probably scrape together some, like, I think that they'd be fine having like the 10 seed.
Yes, no, for sure. But I'm just saying it's like that caliber. The Nets are still higher than the Sixers. That's a better example.
Everyone is fighting for second place right now. No one's going to be as bad as the Wizards. The Wizards are, I thought they were going to be bad coming into the year. They might be even worse than my expectations. Right now they have by far the worst net rating in the NBA. I think they have a negative 13 net rating.
15.9.
Oh my God. That's worse than the Pistons last year.
Is it? Oh God,
it's got to be.
That's crazy. It's more negative than the Thunder's, which is 12.
They have what, 3 wins on the season? So they have 3 wins, 2 against the Hawks and 1 against the Nuggets.
That's very, very funny, dude.
They're 3-20 right now. So every team will be fighting for. Every team will be fighting for unbelievable 3-21. So you're in that New Orleans, Pelicans, the Jazz, the Raptors, the Hornets. This is what I will say. I do agree with you. It's going to be hard to fight off the Nets.
Yeah.
Because the Nets are very obviously going into the tank, as we just discussed with the Dennis Schroder trade. Yeah. I kind of think that the Raptors and the Hornets could kind of trick themselves a little bit. I know Scotty Barnes is out again. The Raptors have looked competent. When LaMelo played, the Hornets look competent, and LaMelo probably comes back tonight against the Sixers. By the way, their next 2 games are Sixers. It's Sixers Hornets.
I was gonna say that, like, I feel like the Raptors have been like. This sounds familiar. I might be stealing from someone. Maybe you said this. I think maybe somebody said this. The Raptors have kind of been like the Jazz that first. I
thought that was my comparison was the Nets for that.
Oh, you were saying the Nets for that? Okay. That's how I feel about the Raptors. Because every time I watch the Raptors, they're like actually pretty competitive. They just lose. Mm-hmm. Grady Dick was fucking cooking the Heat the other night. And they just kind of like ran out of gas. But like they've got guys like Mogbo. They've got Ochai Agbaji is weirdly kind of like good for them. Like, and all of this is done without, like, Quickly's been out like pretty much this whole time. And I don't think he's like good, but he's an NBA rotation player. Like, I do think that they could have like a baseline level of competence. But then the fact is that, like, with all of these teams that we're talking about, because I agree with you, I think the Hornets are competent. I think the Raptors are competent. I think the Blazers, I have their own weird level of competence. All of these teams have to be better than like the next tier up, though, which is the Pistons, who I think are like pretty good. The Pacers, who are disappointing, but like should be good. The Kings, who are 500, and like the Hawks are like the next tier, and they're clearly worse than all of those teams. Like, we just have such stratification on every level of all of these teams is my thing. Like, I don't think anybody can move up or down, really. I think everyone's kind of locked into where they're going to be. I don't think the standings are going to change a lot besides the Nets between now and
I think the next 2 weeks will dictate what the Sixers do for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. Because if Joel's out the next 2 weeks, it's just so heartbreaking for me because Jared McCain was the one thing that I could come out of this season and be like, look, it sucked, but McCain's cooking. There are all these star indicator upside stuff with him. He's been way better than I ever imagined, especially as a rookie. The sky's the limit for him. To not even have him to watch now and just to watch Maxey struggle to create offense and have, his own terrible year this year, along with the fact that Nick Nurse really seems like he's just doesn't like. I watch the games and I go, I'm seeing what you're seeing, which is that the Sixers very clearly lack talent beyond the top players who are regularly not available. But you can at least cobble together some competent lineups sometimes. Like, for example, I said this earlier, I feel like I'm going insane when I watch them because I was like, just my gut tells me that the team has been way better when KJ Martin and Maxey play together. Because Maxey, if you're not going to give Maxey a spaced floor and have him be kind of working and having to create his own advantages out of thin air, you're going to need to give him something to work with offensively. And so I looked up the KJ Martin, Tyrese Maxey lineups. They have a 119.7 offensive rating during those minutes and a 7.9 net rating. Without KJ Martin on the floor, Tyrese Maxey has a 103 offensive rating and a -12 net rating. So while the team sucks, and while the team, especially with Jared McCain and Joel Embiid for these next few maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I don't know, with McCain for probably 2 months to maybe the whole season, there is low-hanging fruit that you can pick off here that will keep the team competent. I just don't think that Nick Nurse sees it.
Yeah.
I think that he will continue to trust the players that he trusts, which are the worst players on the team. Andre Drummond, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin. Like that, they can get to a level where they could be on even that Raptors Hornets level of competitiveness that they kind of have shown even without Joel over the last 2 to 3 weeks. But if the coach continues to make the same decisions over and over again, and the GM just sits on his hands because he wants to avoid the tax until the deadline, this team is going to end up somewhere from the 5th worst team in the NBA to the 13th worst team in the NBA. And that's the worst case scenario for a team that has a top 6 pick out the door.
Well, luckily, the NBA loves the Sixers and would be happy to rig the lottery for them.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah,
I feel like if they would, I feel like if you guys won the lottery, they'd be like, throw it back in.
We can't give them flag.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, they're not getting it. Like, yeah.
Or Harper.
Yeah.
They woke. Cooper Flag getting challenged.
So by the way, I almost tweeted about this because I saw an ESPN.com thing about, I love Cooper Flag. I do think Cooper Flag is the number 1 overall pick, but it said something like the like head thing about Cooper Flag in this story was, undoubtedly the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft. And I was like, undoubtedly, I don't know. Like, he's been pretty, I'm not an East Bailey guy, but like Dylan Harper's been like good, like just
extremely good.
Sure. I think it's a conversation. Guard. I would still take Flag because I think the defensive upside is like crazy. And I think that he has the clear, like, upside. Like,
he's also a white boy from Maine.
Yeah. So Newport, the Prince of Newport. I'm not turning on the Prince of Newport. Like,
Sam will be putting all of his beliefs into someone as an athlete from Maine who's also white.
Yeah, I was also.
He will be living out.
Also a Division I athlete.
Exactly.
My career was cut short after 2 years.
Exactly.
So he got drafted to the NBA. I had a drinking problem. They're very similar, Exactly. We both went pro in a line of work that people are really interested in, So yeah,
he's basically Obama for white guys from Maine.
Yes, exactly. That he is. Our top pick is white. It's like what's the Young Jeezy. It's the Young Jeezy song. Oh God, it's I don't know. I do think have you seen like the Flag defensive metrics though? Like even with him like being like kind of a bad shooter, like he's pretty.
The thing with Flag is I am grading him on a curve a little bit to start this year.
Yeah.
Because he literally is 17. Once again, I've talked about all of the other top prospects recently. Cade, Mobley, Paolo, Chet, all of those guys were like 20 on draft night.
Yeah.
He's going to be 18 and a half on draft night.
Yeah.
So I will grade him on a bit of a curve, but Harper's production is undeniable. And when you watch him, he jumps off the screen. Now, the one thing about Harper is that it's very clear that he isn't the one setback you would say about him is the lead guard level athleticism, how athletic you have to be a lead guard in the NBA.
Yeah.
But
he's
everything else is good.
Isn't he 6'6"? Yeah. That solves a lot. Ask Cade Cunningham. That solves a lot of things.
Your boy.
I get so mad. I got so mad watching that Pistons game. He's so good when you aren't making him be a fucking like point guard. Like, why are you running isolations for him? I feel like I'm getting.
They don't have other talent.
Just fucking screen for him. Like, who cares? Like, just set a screen. Like, they literally just isolate for him, and it's like that is like the thing that he's terrible at. It's crazy. Anyway,
so I just want to pull this up real quick.
Yeah.
Just now, per 100 possessions, that's a lot of possessions.
Yeah.
But Dylan Harper is averaging 38.8 points per 100 possessions on 52, 36, 76 splits with 7.2 assists, only 3.8 turnovers. So almost double the assist to turnover ratio there. 8 rebounds. He has a plus 10.6 BPM this year. Yeah. Like, he's very obviously challenging Flag for the number 1 pick.
Yes. No, I think it's offense defense, like, because I think I do think aren't Harper's steals rate, it's like not bad, but it's like not what you would want. I think it's 1 a game or something like that.
Yeah, you're drafting him for his offense.
Yeah, it's offense defense, you know what I'm saying? And I do think that like Flag is gonna like get the, you know what I'm saying? Like Flag's shooting like what 33% from 3 from like college 3 or something like that.
Right. Honestly, I know Mobley showed a little bit more offensively at this point, but he was older. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the Cade Mobley draft, to be honest, in terms of the argument at the top. Like, how good do you have to be an engine in the NBA?
Yeah.
Versus if Flag gets drafted to the right team, put him next to a legit offensive creator or creators, and the defense is going to speak for itself and the offense will come around. Although Mobley was good offensively in college, way better than Flag's been, to be clear.
Yeah. I will say it's way worse than I thought it was. It's 22.2% from 3. Ouch.
For Flag right now?
For Flag right now.
Yeah, I mean the shooting is not good. Like, there's no way around it.
50 true shooting right now. But I do still lean Flag just because like the defense is so nuts, and like I think that I trust that to like kind of like come around. Also, Duke is just the most Mickey Mouse program. Like every year, a guy looks kind of bad at Duke, and then they get in the NBA and they're awesome. So
New Kentucky marketed efficiency just dropped.
Yeah,
it's Cal has passed the torch to what's his name, John Trier. I think
yeah, John Cryer. Yeah, the one of the 2.5 men besides.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, the Sixers right now. No, look, it's easier for me to sit here and say they should tank when Paul George is 34.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid is 30, and if he ever can get healthy for a month straight, he might not be MVP Joel Embiid, but he might look like he did in the Bulls game for a week or two, and they win games easily. That could happen. I also think that it is being undersold how bad some of the players that are going to get more minutes now are in their rotation with these 2 injuries. Like, Drummond is going to play a lot.
I think he's the worst NBA rotation player I've seen this year.
Well, here's the thing, because Lowry isn't being defensively, like he's been a destructive defensive center, is like, and also really doesn't have a ton of offensive utility for a team that relies on that kind of player. Like when Joel Embiid is not on the court, that's what Drummond has been. I wouldn't say that Drummond has been as bad as Lowry, but he's been less damaging. Lowry's been less damaging because his role is just much smaller.
Yeah.
Like they ask so much of Drummond and he's just bad at all of it.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
That's more of what I'm trying to say.
That's fair. I want you to see what SH just sent. SH just sent a quote from Jeff Teague from his podcast talking about, how do you say AJ's
AJ Dibanasta?
Dibanasta, the $7 million deal. And the greatest man in NBA media, Jeff Teague, weighed in and said, I would have went to BYU too. I could go a year without buns.
For $7 million?
Yeah. That's Volcel, man.
We talked about this before. $7 million.
That all the time.
You don't get laid for a year, but then you instantly go to the NBA.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? You go to the NBA and you also just have $7 million. You're a millionaire.
Vegas also isn't that far. You could get away. We've talked about this.
Yeah, that's probably
just hop over to Vegas.
Lose your money.
Dennis Rodman did it during the finals in between days with Billy
cool.
Corrigan from the Smashing Pumpkins.
The perfect 90s crew. That's such a good 90s crew to have.
Yes. AJ Dibanasta can literally just hit up NBA YoungBoy who lives in Utah and go down to fucking Vegas for weekends.
God damn.
It would be incredible.
So funny.
But yeah, 6 months on campus. That's nothing, dude.
That's fine.
Soak it in, baby.
Soak
it in, AJ. That's what our guy Igor Dimin is doing right now.
Igor, I'm still making up my mind. I tell you, I watched an Igor tape and I was alarmed at how slow he is.
Yeah,
I know he's huge. I know he's huge, but like, holy boy, it takes him I know he's 6'9", but it takes him a long time to get into anything.
Yeah, I know.
I can't wait to argue with you about VJ Edgecombe.
You're VJ pilled?
I might end up. I'm trying to see if because it seems like a lot of people are kind of out on VJ. So I feel honor bound to defend him since it seems like everyone kind of doesn't like him. Like he's the topic that everyone doesn't like right now.
Shocking that you're picking the Baylor guy everyone's out on.
That's right.
No, I know a lot of people were still very in on him because he is, once again, the difference between him and like a prospect like Jacoby Walter, who you were in on last year, he is an insane fucking athlete. Like, I'm not denying that. The steal.
I also want to be clear that the Jacoby thing was kind of a bit. Like I knew he was bad. I knew he was bad. I said the joke that hold on. I said that he looks like the profile of every bad NBA player ever.
But
what if he's a dog? He's a dog, though.
What if he wasn't?
That I was very aware that was me just being silly. I do think VJ Edgecombe is could be a Jalen Suggs, Marcus Smart type guy. His steal and block rates are the highest since Thybulle's, and he's not playing in a zone, right?
The thing about Thybulle was that he was a bit of a zone merchant, and still incredible steal and block rates, but because he played in that, to have that indicate, and just watching him, you could tell he can jump out the fucking gym. He is. Yeah. He moves up and down. I understand the upside with him. I just need to see the offensive production a little bit more before I buy in on star ceiling with him. Has always been my thing. But
he's shooting better from three than Cooper Flag is, which is very funny to me.
Amazing.
The 63% free throw rate is alarming, though. I will say
he only shoots 63% at the line right now.
Yeah, that's tough. He's only getting there 4 times a game, which is tough when you're an athlete like that. But
so, just to put up, I don't really know what to do with the Sixers. I just kind of think that they're kind of fucked this year. This is the year from hell in so many ways, because not only every time there's something to grab onto with them, it's we're going to take Jared McCain away. Joel can't stay healthy. Maxi's having this disastrous season. And usually when you have a year like this, the Pelicans right now are going through this. And I understand they probably are being driven insane, especially with the Brandon Ingram thing and Zion Williamson just never staying healthy and all that. The Pelicans have their own pick. and they could be like, shit, we get another opportunity. We might be able to add a legit top talent to a good roster next year, which is like exactly what they need. I think the Sixers are basically in a situation where we're almost guaranteeing ourselves to be sitting in the cuck chair on draft night or draft lottery night and giving OKC like the 8th pick in the draft.
Yeah, that's pretty possible.
That's just kind of the vibes right now, just based on everything, how everything has gone this year for them. But anyway,
that's what's going to happen.
What's that?
It does kind of seem like that's what's going to happen. However, MLE next year?
MLE?
Yeah. Full mid-level, right?
Awesome. Can't wait. That's going to solve all our problems.
It could. I'm just saying, just have to be healthy once.
Jesus Christ. All right. Well, prayers up for Jared McCain, man. I feel bad for him, especially because this rookie of the year race now.
Yeah. Oh, it's dire, man. It's fucking dire.
So right now, it unless Jared has the meniscus thing and comes back and plays like 30 games at the end of the year, it's going to come down to Yves Missy, Jalen Wells, Steph Castle, Zach Edey, Donovan Clingan, Dalton Connect.
Yeah, Dalton they're gonna push Dalton.
All right, so
it's gonna be Castle, which is gross. It's boring. Boom.
So we looked this up earlier. Do you know the draft class that we talked about before this that was like the worst draft class of all time, the 2000 draft? Yeah. Someone in the Discord looked this up. Mike Miller won Rookie of the Year that year.
Okay.
Mike Miller had a higher true shooting percentage than Stephen Castle has right now. In the year 2000. Now, Mike Miller obviously was a shooter. Like, he could shoot. Yeah. But Stephen Castle is the odds-on favorite on, like, Polybet or whatever that website is called.
Sure, yeah.
Which is just betting for poly people, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is, yeah.
That's all the poly people knew Trump was going to win the election.
Yeah, there's the Ace Bet is the asexual website. Like they I don't know why they break it down by sexualities like that.
Yeah. We're going to get Polybet as a sponsor since we're the anti-monogamous NBA podcast. Yeah. So the shout out to them if they want to come on as sponsors. Just DM me on Twitter. So the thing that I wanted to
FanDuel, let's go. Big pull from Jake. Let's go.
FanDuel made me laugh out loud. Let's go.
Draft swings. Let's go. Let's keep cooking, folks. Let's go. We can do this all day.
Oh boy. Oh
God.
Unbelievable. All right, so oh my God. I'm choking.
Oh God.
Shit.
Those are all killing
my
me, dude.
God. What a time.
Amazing. Oh, all right. Anyway. But enough about the Sixers.
Steph Castle is winning Rookie of the Year, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just everyone is such a fucking Wemby virgin on that team. I'm feeling very vindicated for not letting that fraud Vassell trick me.
He's like their seventh man. Will's pointed this out.
Yeah.
He's like their seventh man now, and he makes like $25 million a year.
It was one of the most insane. I'm sorry, like that was one of the most like consent manufacturing things I've ever seen about like guys who like make a bunch of clips and post a bunch of clips on Twitter like back to back about like plays about like, oh, they're running Spain pick and roll. Like those guys all like tricked each other. They all like tricked each other on like Devin Vassell. It was crazy. So
he's played 11 games, 24 minutes a game. He's shooting 47% from the field, 40% from three on pretty good, decent volume. and he averages 16 points, 2.7 assists. Like, he's been pretty good, but not what he was sold as, which was the thing that always drove you insane. And I was always like, I can see the upside a little bit as a wing who could dribble, shoot, and pass, and is a decent defender, and blah, blah, blah. But it's very obvious that the Spurs, unless this injury is just worse than we could imagine, it's very obvious that the Spurs aren't seeing him as like, potential second guy or third guy with Wemby. And right now, the thing with the Castle thing is funny because Castle, I think he's been basically exactly what I expected in the NBA. I've talked a lot about this in general. The fact that I'm like, yeah, he's like a pretty good driver and like he can pass a little bit. He's a pretty good defender. He's also like he's not a jump shooter at all. And it's hard for me to see a path to where a guard in the NBA can become a legit star with that. Having said that, for this Rookie of the Year class, it's literally just all, especially now with McCain out, it's literally all role players. And then he's the only guy that's in like a role where he gets enough touches and gets enough shots to be like, if you squint, you can see him as a star with star upside. And I think that's ultimately what's going to get him the Rookie of the Year in this race. Because you're comparing him to guys like I think Jalen Wells has probably been the best NBA player out of this crew, but also he is in such a minimized role for a good team. He's like a fourth or fifth lineup guy. And those are effective, and that's good to have that, but like he was not a high pick coming out. He's got a lot of things working against him is what I'm trying to say when it comes to Rookie of the Year race type shit.
Yeah. So, small market. Those poor Memphis Grizzlies fans, they're going to give it to the glitz and glamour of a San Antonio Spurs player because they personally hate the Memphis Grizzlies, the most persecuted fan base in the NBA. I do think because it's always funny with like Rookie of the Year, like when you end up looking back on it, because it's like guys like Jalen Wells, like sometimes you give those guys Rookie of the Year and it ends up looking
not recently though.
Stupid. Not recently. That's what I'm saying.
Brogdon was really the last one, and
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's someone just commented that.
Yeah,
like every other player that got it was either made an all-star team, right?
Yeah.
Like I think literally everyone, if we went through, like LaMelo Ball, Luka, Ben Simmons, every single one from the last Ja Morant, like there really isn't a Rookie of the Year that even Scotty Barnes like made an all-star team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there really isn't anyone that wins Rookie of the Year and doesn't make an all-star team. And this could be the first year we've had since the Brogdon year where someone wins and isn't a clear future all-star.
Well, and the Brogdon year was because Ben was hurt, right? Am I misremembering?
It was Ben and Embiid were both Embiid. So hold on. Yes, 2016. So Ben was out.
Yeah.
And Embiid only played 25 games. That was his third year in the league. He played like 25, 30 games that year.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to give it to him. Like, not to say that McCain's going to be as good as Embiid, but in terms of someone who was clearly on a path before the injury, for the Sixers to have this happen to them again 10 years later is kind of wild, to be honest.
Yeah, and I guess that was just the point I was going to make is like that 2016 draft isn't like great, like outside of like Jaylen Brown ended up like developing into like what he was going to be. I mean, I guess Jamal Murray and like, but you've got guys like Jamal Murray and Brandon Ingram are like the other like.
It's just a weird class.
Yeah, these are all guys who like took a while to develop. Like I'm just saying, like it comes from. Guys, Brogdon winning that year comes from
late bloomer type.
And just not having a lot of talent. And that's what we're dealing with this year. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like Edie could win it, but I'm like not sure Edie is good.
Okay, so here's the thing. Obviously we both love Edie pre-draft.
Yeah.
I watched Memphis. So Ben Taylor did a video on Memphis recently.
Yeah,
where
Kevin was saying that the Grizzlies can't win because he took Ben Taylor's video to heart because their offense is too weird.
So here's what I learned from that video. They're basically running this system where it's kind of like everyone is constant. and Draymond talked about it. He had clips of Draymond talking about it in there where he's like, they're constantly moving on and off the ball, but they're not like setting up plays, if that makes sense. Like they're basically just like doing decoys to get defenders in the wrong places. Yeah. So like if Jay Huff is in, for example, Jay Huff will be like cutting down the baseline and the defender will think he's behind him. He'll pop out the three. So then he'll start to go space towards the corner, like where Jay Huff is. And then Jay Huff will like back cut him and then get like an easy dunk. And this is constant. Like guys are always moving, trying to trick defenders and get them out of place. They're not setting ball screens. They're not running traditional pick and rolls. They're basically doing a similar system to kind of what like the original Warriors did, but without movement shooters and more just with constant cutters and guys who are trying to get into the corners from three. Now, the thing is, Edie came back and I watched last night and like, it just doesn't really work with Edie.
Yeah, well, because this isn't what I expected. I expected them to be doing a lot of pick and roll with Ja.
Exactly.
Like, and that's what I thought. And I thought Edie's huge. Ja is one of the best, he's one of the better lob passers in the NBA. And he's like still got that. And I was
great rim pressure guy.
Right.
Edie's one of the best centers in the NBA. Can rebound if Ja misses the shot.
Yeah. I was thinking spread pick and roll around like Edie Ja, like in like, you know, not necessarily maybe with the starters, but like in the minutes that he plays. But yeah, I mean, I think if the things with like Santi Aldama being like a real movement shooter changes some of this. I think Jalen Wells being like a real NBA player changes some of this. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world because Ja is so fucking him, dude. Like it's like crazy. He's such an athlete. He does have like I think he's kind of underrated as like a passer, like to be totally honest.
Incredible passer, yeah.
Because I think everyone just assumes I don't know. I feel like his rep is kind of like turned into like, oh, he's just this crazy athlete. And I think people forget that he is like, I don't know, like one of like what the 4 or 5 best passers in the NBA. I don't even think I'll know who I would like put ahead of him. It's like Jokic.
I'd probably put Jokic, Trey, Harden, Luka, and he's probably up there.
It's like him and LaMelo are probably like the next guys. Like
he's top 10 passer, but also if you talk about the thing about Ja that's always made him special is that, and I talked about this, was the fact that we haven't had it because we were talking about like why Scoot has struggled in the NBA
because he's bad.
Which is
next question.
But also it's like he was advertised as this crazy athlete.
Yeah,
who could develop a shot,
and
everything would open up his playmaking from there. And he was a pretty good passer. Ja is post Russ as a guard is the best combo of fastest player on the court that can jump out the gym, can put constant pressure on the rim, but also can spray out to shooters, can throw lobs, can do all of that shit as well. The only limitation in Ja's game is the pull-up three-point shot. Like everything else is pretty refined and fantastic as a creator for him.
Yeah. I just every time I watch Ja, I like fucking stand up and like do something. Because I feel like we've gotten to the point where like bloggers end up being like NBA podcasters, the scum of the earth, those vile creatures that we don't like. They always like want to have something to say, and they'll be like just totally hyperbolic about, oh my God, and Desmond Bain made me stand up out of my chair. I was like, did Desmond Bain make you stand up out of your chair? Ja actually fucking does that with like something that's like genuinely, something I haven't seen since like Prime Russ or Derrick Rose. Like that's like what we're like talking about here. Like, yeah.
So two things about the Grizzlies in general. I think that they might be a little bit better built for the playoffs this year.
Yes, I would agree. I think they're legit this year.
I think they have more talent. Yeah. I think that this system is a new wrinkle.
Yeah.
And I also think that going into last night's game, they were 9th. Someone I saw a tweet that said they were 9th in half-court offense. Last night was so bad it dropped them to 16th. Because we're still at that point of the season where a really bad game can kind of drop you down the standings.
For sure.
But my point on this is more the fact that might be something that they need to solve with the Edie thing. Because they have other bigs that can play. Like, Jay Huff is really good.
He's really good.
Brandon Clark is having a bounce back season.
Yeah.
Like, they have guys that can play if Edey proves to be unplayable in the playoffs. And I think that they are now at a point where they have so much flexibility with their lineup shit that I think if I were ranking like the 3 teams in the West, I'm still going OKC 1, and I'm going Dallas 2, just because I've seen it with Dallas in the playoffs. Luka and Kyrie are those guys, and I think their supporting cast is even better than last year and the conference finals team from a few years ago. And then I would probably go Memphis 3rd right now of the teams. If I'm now matchup dependent wise, they could get a bad matchup in the first round and still lose, sure. But in terms of teams that I think can right now can win multiple playoff series, that would be my rankings. And I think that Memphis is I don't think that they necessarily even need to make an upgrade at this deadline, but if they wanted to, they could be a threat out west. I don't think they're going to win the West, but I think they could like push a team for sure, like one of the top teams.
I think it's pretty interesting. I do think the Thunder are kind of a bad matchup for them, but I think if somebody else assassinates the Thunder before the Grizzlies have to play them, I think that would be pretty interesting.
Pretty interesting.
Pretty interesting. We continue. I think this is kind of a boring year because you and I are kind of in lockstep on a lot of how we feel about the teams, but I'm still out on Dallas. It's like one of our few like disagreements still. Is I keep thinking of, I said it in our NBA app, but I have the Pierce from Community, like what's wrong with Luka? Fat. Like that's just how what form do you want Luka to take? Like,
once again, yeah. I hear every argument in the NBA for why Luka might be this or might be that, and then I watch a game like last night where he scores 45, 11, and 13 on 16 of 23 from the field with 2 blocks and 3 steals, and I just don't give a fuck. Like I know there's every reason to be, oh man, Luka doesn't look in shape, Luka isn't this or that. He's still Luka, and I think that when it comes to nut crushing time, especially in the Western Conference playoffs, he's proven that he can still be that guy. Even if it's only for one game or one series. Like,
who was it who took Luka's beer?
Michael Finley.
Yeah. You get Michael Finley just living in
We're having an intervention for Luka.
Just Michael Finley. Every time Luka goes to the fridge, Michael Finley just shows him behind him, just takes away.
That's how close we are to a Dallas Mavericks dynasty.
Michael Finley deploying Michael Finley to just take the hookah out of his hand.
So, by the way, speaking, just putting a bow on the Rookie of the Year conversation.
Yeah.
Who do you think has a higher true shooting, Stephen Castle or rookie Michael Carter-Williams?
Ooh, good question. I bet Michael Carter-Williams. He was kind of hooping that first year.
So Steph Castle so far has a true shooting of 48.2.
Yeah, I knew that.
Rookie MCW had a true shooting of exactly 48. So it's almost the same.
Okay.
He actually has a higher BPM because, like you said, he was hooping. Statistically speaking, he was slightly better than Steph Castle across the board. So if we want to make the 2013 comparisons, I think Steph Castle's defense is very legit. And I still think he's going to be a good NBA player.
I was just going to say, are you saying Steph Castle's parents should make it so he puts his salary in a trust?
What I'm trying to say is that I believe that Steph Castle can become a very good NBA role player. I don't think he's a star, and I think that McCain being out for the rest of the season makes it likely that whoever wins Rookie of the Year is going to be one of the more underwhelming Rookies of the Year historically when we compare them to the rest of the class.
Jalen Wells, it is your time to shine. We will make
one of these guys.
Yeah, we will make
one of these guys is going to get it.
But you could do it, King. I believe in you.
Yeah,
Zachary Richichet, it is your time.
I'm hoping
get a little hot for three.
I'm hoping he does, but it's been a very mixed bag so far, I would say. And so the lows are very low.
I think if the Hawks win like 48 games and like Richichet just has like some 2-month stretch where he just catches fire, I think he could win it too.
So here's the issue. Castle is a part of a lot of winning lineups still. Rishi when he goes to the bench, the Hawks are like amazing.
It's
And
true.
impact stats are going to always favor the guys who are on the... Now, BPM is going to be lower on Castle, but you know that the nerds have a lot more influence over this kind of shit when it comes to award stuff nowadays. And like, I think the highest, like, once again, I remember a few years ago, the Walker Kessler versus Paulo argument drove me insane because it's like, they're just completely different roles. Like, when people were saying Walker Kessler should win, like, there was a very few small group of people saying Walker Kessler should win because of his impact stats. And I was like, he's literally a run and jump center on like a team with like, he plays like 20 minutes a game. Like Paulo is the lead creator and is very clearly a future star. Like, and that might be the thing that gets Castle the benefit of the doubt because he is part of winning lineups. His defense is very legit. His slashing is very legit. It's just the scoring and the jump shooting that limits his ceiling in the future for me, but he could still win just based on the fact that he has a harder role than guys like Rishi and Missy and Wells, and he might get benefit of the doubt there.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Because on the one hand, you think Castle is going to get the boomer vote just because they love guys who like play defense and like hard nosed, scrappy guys.
Also, top pick bias. He was the 4th pick in the draft. Got drafted to a darling franchise in the Spurs and went to the darling college in UConn too.
Yeah. Here's what I would say though. It's March. You turn on to God himself, Bill Simmons. Are you shocked if you hear?
I just like him.
You know what? I just like you're playing with Victor Wembanyama, and you're shooting 38%.
Oh no! I think
you watch those guys, Rusilla. I think that's interesting. I don't know, like Rishi. This is a Hawks team. We don't like Trae Young, Rusilla. You or I. Like what? Culture changed there. Something's different. DeAndre Hunter, that's a guy who's come along. I don't know. Rishi's impact, that's a guy who gives a shit. And like,
I think it goes the opposite. I think Bill's gonna love Castle.
I mean, Bill does love Castle. Like right,
he
now.
loved Castle pre-draft. He also like remember Bill loved Marcus Smart before he turned on him.
I literally do not remember that because he spent like 8 years despising Marcus Smart. Because like
that's not true. He liked Marcus Smart before the team got really good.
I don't remember.
And I view Castle as that kind of player long term. And
he
like
is. Yeah, no, he is. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say is like if that's the kind of guy where he'll be like, I don't care what the stats say. That guy, he's a dog. Like he'll say, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I'm gonna lock you up, and he might not do it, but he's trying every night. Like that is the boomer code.
Here's because I think you're right. Like most of the time, my thing is that Bill cares so much about like historical stuff, and I think he's got his eye on Wemby in terms of like history and like palette and stuff. I think he's not going to have a lot of tolerance for guys around Wemby not being good. You've seen him do it with like Jokic and stuff like that, like where he kind of comes down on guys and stuff like that. Maybe rookie of the year is a little bit too much. I could see Bill long term turning on Castle, like if we're in like year 3 and like the Spurs have still like not gotten home court like at some point or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that I don't know. Like I do think that Bill does care a lot about winning. He's gonna be like, rookie of the year, you're playing next to defensive player of the year, and like you won 37 games. Like I want a little bit more. Vasillo. That's why Jalen Wells is a home over.
This guy, he comes out of nowhere. I've never even heard of him, and he's starting on a playoff team like that. That could definitely happen. I could definitely see that going in that direction. I don't think he'll make the argument for Rishi, but I could see it for a guy like Wells. All right, so
Rishi Island, Vasillo.
I'm still there. I watch him. I don't care what the numbers say. This guy gives a shit. He'll say that about both Castle and Rishi, by the way. So last thing before we get out of here, we have to make our NBA Cup final pick because we have Thunder Bucks. First question: are you willing to eat crow on the Bucks?
No.
Okay.
They're losers. This is the Lakers last year.
Lakers last year. So you're saying that they're gonna be a lower seed still and then lose in the first round?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to be. What did I say they were going to be coming into? Say 7th.
I think
I'm
you said
standing
they
by
were-
that. Yeah,
I think I had them as like the 4 or 5 seed.
Yeah, I say 7th. I do think they could absolutely win this, though. You know what I'm saying? This is kind of what the cup is like when you're out of contention, but you're still like kind of a good team.
Back in the resume, baby.
Yeah,
Giannis
exactly.
gets the
Yeah.
cup,
I do
cup
think
MVP.
I think Giannis respects the cup. Like a lot.
Definitely. Giannis definitely respects the cup. I think both of these teams respect the cup. I actually think that in a way, Rockets Bucks would have been a more appropriate NBA Cup final. Not to say that because of what you're saying, because I think the Thunder are very obviously the best team in the West.
Yeah.
And I also think that like the Rockets, like the Udoka, like
Yeah.
we're gonna try. But the only thing that I'm worried about with the Rockets, I still like Şengün, but I am a little bit worried that it seems like anytime there's any game that matters, Şengün absolutely sucks. That's a little bit concerning. He's too young for me to really put too much into that, but it's just something I noticed the other night that I was like, this is a little bit concerning. I'm going Bill mode a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit. I still believe in Şengün long term.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying. But and by the way, I've said the Bucks have had a Mickey Mouse schedule. They've been anytime they play a real team, they don't look that great. I think this Hawks team is pretty good though, and I think that they. Now, look, are they limited outside of Trey in terms of scoring punch? Yes, we saw that. And we saw it in that game. Yeah. But I do think I said it in the Discord before the game. I said the Hawks respect the cup. Mm-hmm. I was expecting a cup set. I was expecting us to come on here and be talking about the Hawks versus either the Thunder or the Rockets in the finals. And the Bucks did what they needed to do, and I have to put some respect on their name for that. I still think they're about what I expected coming into this year. I didn't expect them to be as bad as they were early in the year. I don't think they're as good as their recent schedule. I picked them as the 4 or the 5 seed. I can't even remember. I think that they're just like a decent regular season team that could win a playoff series, but I would be surprised if they made a deep run. This is different, though. This is the cup.
This is the cup. Giannis is probably one of the best any single game players like ever, you know what I'm saying? Like say what you want about like Shea as like, you know, Shea is kind of in the MVP contention. Like he's a top 5, top 3 player in the league in some, I'm lower on Shea than most people. Like, I think he's like top 5, but like, I understand someone putting him higher. I think Giannis turns on winner mode here. I think Giannis turns on the halfback dive option. And I think the Bucks like kind of overpower the Thunder because there's no Chet. That's the other thing here. Also, the Thunder have Chiodo pointed this out, and I want to credit Chiodo for this. That like silly little post game conference that was not respecting the cup. What the Thunder did, bringing in everyone to do that. That was always this is fun, this is funny, No, the cup is serious business, and you disrespected the cup with that like absurd post game thing where you invite everyone over there. Like bad Jalen Williams has no right to be anywhere near the NBA Cup. So that is why I will be picking the Bucks because they did not disrespect the cup the way that the Thunder did.
I don't have a strong feeling either way with this, but I do think that if it's a close game, that the Bucks might get a little bit of referee favoring just because they're still trying to like. This is actually great for the like we just talked about the ratings bullshit on the Patreon part. If you want to hear that, subscribe to the Patreon. This is a great kind of marquee matchup for setting up like 2 teams that will, you know, have like a superstar in Giannis, SGA and the Thunder, the new team, the team that won the title a few years ago.
It'll get more casual eyes on the Thunder, I think, for sure. Yeah.
I do think that my gut tells me the Bucks. I think the Thunder are the better team. I think that
for sure.
In the long term, I'm taking the Thunder in this season, but in my gut, it does. And we have Doc. We didn't
even talk about Doc.
Up the cup. He said there's a title in front of us and we want to go win it. They're winning the NBA Cup title. Giannis gets a line on his Wikipedia page. Dame will say, "I thought I couldn't win anything."
Dude, I'm just gonna point out who's the MVP of the Cup Finals. Who's won the only MVP in the Cup Finals so far? One of the two greatest players of all time. LeBron. It's got to be the NBA Cup. You don't win an NBA Cup Finals MVP without being one of the greatest players of all time. And Giannis
goes on the resume.
Giannis is the only surefire Hall of Famer as of now, playing in this game. So I trust it.
Well, Dame's a surefire Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah, I honestly wasn't even trying to slander him. I just straight up forgot.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, what if Dame wins Finals MVP for the Cup? Does that make the rift come back between him and Giannis?
Do we talk about? I think last thing before we get out of here. Did we ever talk about that? Like maybe the rift between Giannis and Dame is incel versus sexually active. Like it could be as simple as that. You're a divorced guy, and you have to go be on the team with Mr. Oh, I love my wife so much. Like
that's actually perfect.
Yeah, like I think that I just think that that's something that people haven't like looked into before. So you should turn Dave back into a wife guy. You can't have him Rosillo posting out here.
That's actually true. I mean, and I don't think we ever got confirmation that Giannis ever co-signed Kamala Harris in this election, but we definitely didn't get confirmation that Dame did, and they were in a swing state like Wisconsin.
It's true. I'm laughing. Yeah, that's what I'm laughing at. Billy just fucking cooked me. God damn.
Projection.
He said projecting and then asked if there was a YKB rift.
Incredible. Oh my god.
I'm sorry. I'm going.
All right.
All right. That's it.
Let's get out of here.
I'm getting out of here.
Let's end this. Oh, by the way, I'll be streaming for the Cup final. Join me tomorrow night.
Yes.
Don't forget. I don't want to forget that.
I'll be there too. I'll be there as well.
Let's get it. I was gonna say Sam will be there for at least the first half because it's on at 8:30.
Oh my god, is it really?
Yeah.
That means 8:45 start time. God damn, I hate the NBA. I hate the NBA. That's an actual problem. That's an actual problem. That's gonna be an actual problem. Start the fucking games on time. All right. All right, peace.